Trim it back or pull it up by the roots? That's today's question as our spring yard work continues. Besides the dandelions, lovely but pernicious, and the large variety of is this a weed or a plant? There are the vines. Left to run free, they do. And while pretty and green, they quickly take root everywhere and begin choking out everything else that we want to flourish, even climbing and surrounding our trees, both large and small. Though none of them are the kudzu mentioned in a previous post, they can be just as destructive if not dealt with properly and promptly. In our Sunday's struggles, we've been looking at Habakkuk's concern that God was being unfair and letting his nation be filled with violence and injustice. Like the vines in my yard, sin had taken over, and he wanted God to do something about it. Habakkuk 1, verses 2 through 4. God's answer was to pull it up by the roots. Habakkuk 1, verses 5 through 11. That's when we learned Habakkuk was calling for him to just trim it back. Habakkuk 1, verses 12 through chapter 2, verse 1. God's answer was, the righteous will live by his faith. Habakkuk 2, verse 4. In other words, even if we don't understand what he is doing, we must trust him. God went on to explain that his justice is true justice. Israel was going to suffer for her sin, and so was Babylon. Habakkuk 2, verses 5 through 20. While discussing national sin, God addresses specific individual sins. The proud, the drunkard, the greedy, the gluttonous, for wealth more than food, the bloodthirsty and violent, and the idolater, all stand naked before God. None can hide from him. All will drink from the cup of God's wrath. The Lord ends his litany of their sins deserving his condemnation with a call for Habakkuk to stop debating and listen. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. Habakkuk 2, verse 20. That admonition wasn't just to Habakkuk or the physical nation of Israel. It is to all of us who claim to be his people today. Is it possible that here in America, our allegiance to our culture and current prosperity has taken the place of trusting God? Has sin's vine spread through our hearts and souls to the point that we will overlook sin that perpetuates our prosperity while condemning sin that threatens it? Has American Christianity choked out our faith in God and replaced it with a faux faith that is focused on self rather than God? Have you and I accepted a watered-down version of the gospel that puts not offending people over not offending God? Have we quit arguing with one another over truth just to unify in our debate with God? If so, then trimming it back is not enough. We need to do the painful work of pulling it up by the roots. If we won't, then we too will drink from the cup of God's wrath. Well, thanks for watching the Sunday's Struggles edition of Morning Minutes in the Bible. Until tomorrow, this is James McClenny hoping you will do some serious soul searching and maybe, just maybe, start pulling up some roots.